Now we're going to do our third settlement, Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1630. A group of Puritans left England for religious freedom. Led by John Winthrop, they wanted to create a model Christian community, or what Winthrop said, a city on a hill. The Church of England, or the Anglican Church, had become very corrupt, and the Puritans wanted to reform the church. They decided to separate and go to the New World to create this model Christian community that the whole world could follow, or what Winthrop said, a city on a hill. Reluctantly, Winthrop, who became the governor of Massachusetts Bay Colony, allowed a representative assembly who met in town hall meetings. Massachusetts Bay Colony was very unique. They were a colony that included church and state being entwined. In other words, the church and the government acted as one, as you can see here in the picture. The government also required every person living in the colony to attend church, whether they believed in that religion or not. They were forced to attend. All taxes to support were paid to support the church and the minister. The government also enacted or enforced what we call moral codes or blue laws, things such as no dancing, drinking, or card playing on Sundays. As church and state were entwined, or they were together, there was one thing that was separated. Ministers could not run for public office in Massachusetts Bay Colony. As you can imagine, for some people living this way in Massachusetts Bay Colony, where the church and the state were together, was okay, but not everyone agreed on the way things were being run. People who disagreed were called dissenters. Dissenters are people who disagree with what's going on. Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1692 also had a series of what we call the Salem witch trials or Salem witch hunt. In 1692, there became a belief in witches, a common European superstition for centuries. It also infected the colonies. Massachusetts became unsettling times, and this mass hysteria sort of emerged in Salem, where 19 women and 1 man was accused of being a witch and were executed. Other dissenters in Massachusetts Bay Colony were Roger Williams and Anne Hutchinson. Roger Williams in 1636 had some very different beliefs than what was believed in Massachusetts Bay. He believed that that there should be a separation of church and state, not church and state entwined. He also believed that the colonists had stolen the land from the Indians and that we should pay the Indians for their land. Ultimately, he was kicked out of Massachusetts Bay Colony, and he went on to establish Providence, Rhode Island, based on freedom of religion. Roger Williams heavily influenced several of our founding fathers, including Thomas Jefferson, who also believed in a separation of church and state. The last dissenter I want to talk about is Anne Hutchinson, and she was a woman in 1638 who was also kicked out of Massachusetts for her beliefs. She believed that people could speak directly to God. The Anglicans and the Puritans believed that you had to go through a priest or a minister in order to speak to God. But Anne believed that no, that everyone could kneel down and speak directly to God. She also believed that women could speak in public. Women at the time were not allowed to speak in public. She often held meetings in her own home, and she prayed with people, and ultimately this got her kicked out of Massachusetts too. She went along to join Roger Williams in establishing Portsmouth, Rhode Island. We're going to run through the other colonies pretty quickly, just to give you an idea of who establishes them and sort of why they are established. We're going to start with the next colony, which was Connecticut. Connecticut in 1636 was founded by a man by the name of Thomas Hooker and some other Puritans who disagreed with Massachusetts' requirement of church membership for voting. They settled in the fertile Connecticut River Valley. Here, the Puritans, along with Mr. Hooker, created or wrote the first written constitution in America. It is called the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut, and it is our first written constitution in America. It created a democratic government with voting rights based on property ownership rather than religious belief. New Hampshire was also founded in 1679 by Fernando Jorge and John Mason, and this was broken up from parts of Massachusetts. New York in 1624 was originally a Dutch colony, and it was taken over by the Duke of York and established in 1664 as an English colony. New Jersey became a colony in 1664, mainly for religious and political freedom. Pennsylvania, a proprietary colony, was founded in 1682 by a proprietor, William Penn. He got a nice surprise from the king, who actually owed his father some money. William Penn created a haven for Quakers, and he called it Pennsylvania. Quakers were a religious group that believed that all people had an inner light of God within them. Thus, all were equal, including women, blacks, and Indians. In Pennsylvania, William Penn wrote the frames of government, which guaranteed political and religious freedom and also provided economic opportunity. Every male settler received 50 acres of land. The colony elected a unicameral or one-house legislature and pretty much had huge autonomy, greater autonomy than any other of the colonies. Philadelphia became a very important city in Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia means the city of brotherly love. Delaware was founded in 1682. Originally, it was owned by the Swedes, but then turned into an English colony that was taken over by William Penn. Excuse me. In 1634, Maryland was founded by Lord Baltimore. This colony became a haven for Catholics. Lord Baltimore wrote a religious document called the Toleration Act of 1649, which guaranteed religious liberty or religious freedom for all Christians. North and South Carolina was founded in 1663 by King Charles II. Georgia was founded in 1733 as a haven for debtors. Debtors are people who owe money to the government, and this colony was started by James Oglethorpe. Be sure to fill out your notes and have them in your history spiral.